What's up, guys? Philip with Bob at Trade Genius. And Bob, I don't know about this housing market. I think if you thought FTX was bad, this might make that look like a walk in the park.
Yeah, you ever heard of the game Dominoes?
Yes.
Yeah, this will might be the most expensive domino game ever. It'll make FTX look like a piker.
Crazy. All right, guys, let's dive into this video.
Trade Junior.
All right, Bob. So we're getting all these reports now of Airbnb bookings falling off a cliff. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's true. What happened here was we had the pent up demand from, well, first of all, the pandemic response. People rented out Airbnb places.
Yeah.
They left the big cities, they went in there, and then guys started buying more Airbnb properties. And then we came out of the pandemic, we had this pent up demand for vacations. Now we're getting a reversal here. Companies are forcing employees back to the office
Yep.
or get fired. And also you have a situation where people have already vacationed. And then the third thing you're going to talk about in a little bit is that Airbnb is absolutely not at all I don't think it's a good value for people. So I think what's going to happen here is, we're kind of joking about FTX and the housing market with Airbnb, but it's the same process. There's a term out there, Phil, called rehypothecation, which basically means is that you count on the value of a property you own to borrow for another property you want to buy, and you just keep doing it until you run out of runway, and then you pray to God that the price of the properties don't fall, and you either get called on these loans or you can't make cash flow and you have to start dumping properties out there. And I think we're going to get both things happening, is that people aren't going to rent them at the prices they're going to rent at, and number two is they can't make the cash flows, so they're going to start cutting properties, and then that's just going to start a domino effect. And that's going to affect Airbnb because they get a tag off the rents. So, and this could be huge. I mean, we're talking potentially millions of properties here that are going to be in play. So, it's a different way of happening. What happened in 2008? It's just going to be different because there's not going to be a buyer there for them because prices were so high that prices are going to have to fall 30 to 40% just to get the affordability back down for people to absorb these homes to live in.
Yeah, and I saw a stat pretty staggering that it was I don't have it up, but it was something like there's 1 million open homes basically that haven't been booked, which is extremely high. And I think the market's forward looking. I know we're going to dive into the chart here in a little bit, but I mean, when you have these people that are saying, hey, what's going on, and the statistics that you're going to get from some of the sites that track the bookings, those are lagging indicators, right? You're going to see the results in Q3 and Q4. They're also going to cherry pick, right? Whether it's Airbnb themselves or the statistical companies that make money selling Airbnb stats, for example. They're going to try to paint a rosier picture. They can cherry pick stats to tell you, well, it's not that bad. But when you are getting reports and people on social media complaining about it, then you probably have a situation where, yeah, it's coming down the pipe. And I think the market has already told us what we know is coming just based on the stock price. And I know you're going to cover that in the chart. But I mean, you see people too. I couldn't believe some of the requirements. I'm not a huge Airbnb guy, and I'm not saying that it's bad. If you like Airbnb, that's awesome. But man, some of these requirements here, like having to mow the lawn and do the pool maintenance, and they're like, well, since bookings have dropped off, maybe I'll waive that. And I was just like, are you serious? Like, I didn't even know that was going on. And then people are looking at hotels like, well, hey, we can just stay at the hotel. They clean the room. The pricing's transparent. It's funny too. This person goes, "Oh, I can pray that Superhost Jerry isn't a toilet cam guy," and that's actually a legitimate thing. People have gotten busted for that,
Sure.
and then you're getting the sentiment like, hey, look, I can be at a hotel for $300 a night with a great view, great amenities, and I don't have to deal with all this nonsense and worry about cameras. So I do think, there's a draw in having a place like Airbnb. It's like having houses in multiple areas, right? But They are starting to get to the point where it's getting to be so much nickel and diming and this other stuff with the cleaning and stuff that, hotels, we're not really hearing about hotels suffering in booking. So we might be seeing a shift back to hotels because at the end of the day, the hotels actually are a better price. And in my experience, I always find that hotels are a better bargain. I don't, unless I have some need for a big place with a lot of people, I don't really, most of the time a hotel is going to save me money. Now, counterpoint, Airbnb says that bookings are good for Q2, but I would argue that they could be cherry picking the numbers a little bit here. I saw one where they were comparing it to, year over year over 2019. Like, why are you doing 2019? It should be last year, right? So you got to be careful. I think the Q3 and Q4 numbers are probably going to reflect some of what we're hearing on social media when those earnings come out and the statistics come out on bookings. So that leads us to what's going to happen, right? I think if you have a ton of people that came to the market, were buying up homes, I think a lot of these Airbnbs are second or maybe third properties for people. What are your options, right? And, Bob, I think you have three. You are either going to give up and sell, and you're going to, because now the thing's not paying for itself, right? And I think a lot of people probably levered and were expecting the income to pay for the property. I think that's the majority of the cases. So you're going to do that. Or you're going to turn it into a long-term rental. But as we know, rental prices right now are unsustainable. And if anything, they're coming down a whole bunch because people are getting laid off. Big tech's laying off. We're going into a recession. I don't care what anybody says, or we're already in one. So it's going to put downward pressure on the rental prices. That might not be able to keep up with the cost of the home. Or they move back into the home. But that's probably not going to happen if it's a second or third home for these people. So all in all, you don't have a very bullish picture for the housing market. And I think there's a huge surplus of these Airbnb properties out there, obviously, because they're getting zero bookings. You could see a big collapse and a capitulation when people have to all come to the market at once. And I know, Bob, we've talked about what's the catalyst. You could have the housing market slows, but what forces people to sell? And what forces people to sell is unable to keep the home due to costs, especially if it's not their primary. So I think you will see selling pressure. And you know how that goes. Once one guy starts selling, the other guy is going to try to beat him to the market, and it's a cascading effect. And then you will get a pretty big drawdown in the price of median home prices.
Yeah, look, we own rental real estate, and, there's a big nut. The home that we own, if we don't rent it out, it's a $12,000 cost to us
right
a year.
Yeah.
So you got property tax, you got insurance, you got home association, you got the CPA. Mm-hmm. You have maintenance on that property. None of that goes away, and so at some point these guys are running pretty thin because look, the game has been when you have falling or low interest rates, the game is capital gains, right? You get as many properties as you can, and then start to flip them off. But when it goes the other way like it is now, you lost your buyers underneath that. You're talking 30-40% to get back to the meat of the market, if you will.
Right.
And so it's a problem. And look, I'm a VRBO guy. This is way before Airbnb, so vacation rental by owner. And I've noticed the shift. You used to be able to negotiate directly with the homeowner. You can always work deals, and so they use these companies now to shield you from the owner, so that they could just say, well, that's our price,
right.
And I think you're going to see with all this crap stuff, because we noticed it too, because we usually rent a condo. When we go to Maui or the Big Island, and we've seen all these the headline fee looks great, the rental, and then they hit you with all these dirty fees, and you used to be able to negotiate those away, and I think you're going to be able to negotiate those ways again. And the other thing, too, is my wife's in the business where if travel is strong, then she's busy, and she's not as busy as she was last year. And so that's my gauge on things because I would say my wife's clients are the upper third of the income bracket, and their leisure travel is down. And these are people that can travel any time of the year, Phil. Okay. And we've seen a pretty big pullback after this big surge. We were strong for 9 months. People, oh my gosh, if I could finally get to go to Europe, I finally get to go to Hawaii. and now that's starting to tail off. So I think Airbnb's in big trouble. If you want to throw the chart up, I'm going to show people. Look at the channel that this is in now.
There it is.
So we have with Airbnb, we have a. Let me zoom it up bigger for me.
Yeah, so Airbnb, for you guys listening to the podcast on audio, it's trading at 105 now, and it peaked out basically mid-September up at 128. And all I'll say, and I'll let Bob take it from here, is that markets always know, and the market's always correct, and it's telling us this thing's going down.
Yeah, and look, and I have my money where my mouth is on this. I have puts on this into the end of December. You got to realize, too, people lost money on this stock this year. They're going to dump it before the wash rules hit in December.
Right.
So my expectation is that we'll probably see this back in the double digits. We did a show a couple weeks ago where we talked about a lot of these big names are going to fall quite a bit because of the basically the retracement. So this is, I think, low 90s is coming next on Airbnb. Then after that, it's going to go probably drop into 60s. Just remember, they're very, very sensitive to leverage of income. So as revenues fall, they won't be able to take the expense out of the business fast enough, and it's going to affect their earnings. And I think 2023 is a recession. Travel is going to fall in a recession, Phil.
Yeah, and for the folks that, let's say you hold Airbnb stock and you're the casual investor, you can buy puts, you can sell calls if you hold the stock, which is a way of getting income to fight the drop in the value. Bob does a lot of that on his stuff. Or you can simply just go to cash here and buy back later. But then if you do that, you want to make sure you know when to buy back later. And so that's where our service is nice, because you can be in a chat room, and be talking about this stuff. And so if you're interested in doing that, head over to our site, tradegenius.co, because I think it's very beneficial, especially for the casual investor, even that you have the ability to bounce ideas off of people, and not guessing like, well, where the heck's this thing going to go, or should I get out, or getting out at the wrong spot, getting out at the bottom when you should be just getting in or adding more at that point. So there's various different ways you can play it to insulate your portfolio from going through a drawdown over the next 3 months. So anyway, just throwing that out there, tradegenius.co, check out what we have. You can join us in the chat rooms and help you out in this situation.
Yeah, and there's actually a really high probability of profit trade. It's called bearish call spreads too. So, if you look at the chart we have here, is that, we created some algorithms here. And one of them that you see here, you see that big green line, and you see the pink line now over the top of the current price. And you see down below, you see these we call these heat maps. So when price tops and it's below that pink, and you start getting a rollover, you could sell a call spread out a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you put money in your pocket. And the nice thing about those is you don't have to be right. You just have to not be wrong. And it's just basically collecting and collecting and collecting. And it's a high probability for profit. And we employ that a lot in the rooms too. So a lot of ways to skin the cat trading. You don't have to. In fact, the directional bet, unless you're owning shares, is probably the least likely to pay you. So we can teach you some tips and tricks. So, with that, I just want to show people that too, because we're seeing all the tech doing this right now. So we see the big rollover, and we think personally that we're getting a rotation into hard assets. And people are going to leave tech. And if they leave tech, they're going to go from software to hardware. So, places like Airbnb, I kind of call this like the Dos Equis or the Modella, kind of business model where, everybody's rich and they're all at a bar, having fun and stuff like that, don't get their hands dirty. Well, these kind of businesses are going to start drying up when interest rates go up. So you're going to find yourself cleaning an Airbnb instead of owning them if you're not.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're in the stock, you can come to a room like ours and figure out how to manage that stock. If you're in property, you need to think about maybe whether or not sell now before later, because there will be a race to the bottom. That's how all these cycles go. Or if you're looking to buy, wait, don't get into this market just yet, because I think there's enough evidence here with the recessionary and the macroeconomic picture that things are still going to come down a ways. So hopefully this helps you guys. Again, if you have any questions, leave them below or tell us what you think. What's your experiences with Airbnb like? We'd love to hear from you guys. So with that, I think we're good, right, Bob?
We sure are, Phil. Thank you. And tomorrow, don't miss tomorrow. We have an awesome show for you tomorrow.
Awesome. We'll look forward to that. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe. It really helps us out. We'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.